Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Great to have you here again. I'm Tina and I'm Leo. And on this channel, our whole goal is to help you sound more natural in English through easy, real, everyday conversations. The kind of English people actually use at the office, at home, and just going about their day. And today we're diving into something super practical and something almost everyone deals with at some point, which is how to talk about working overtime in English. Ah yes, overtime. Just saying the word makes some people sigh. That's so true. And honestly, a lot of learners really need this vocabulary for office settings, job interviews, team meetings, and even casual chats with coworkers by the coffee machine. Maybe your manager asks you to stick around late. Maybe a coworker starts complaining a bit. Or maybe you just want to know how to say yes, no, or give me a minute, I need caffeine first. Exactly. So in this lesson, we're going to walk through how to describe overtime, talk about your schedule, express how you feel about it, and respond politely in different situations. Plus, we'll pick up some handy words and phrases you can start using right away. And if you're enjoying these lessons, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new one. All right, let's jump in. So Leo, how's it going today? Honestly, a little sleepy, but still in good spirits. Why sleepy? Stayed up too late last night, told myself just one more episode, and somehow 3 more happened. Oh, that sounds way too familiar. Wait, you do that too. Not usually with shows, but with articles. One turns into another, turns into another. So that's basically your version of the 3-episode trap, pretty much. So what did you get up to this weekend? I tidied my apartment, took about 2 hours. 2 hours, that's dedication. Well, honestly, maybe 20 minutes was actual cleaning, and the rest was me discovering snacks I forgot I had. That's not cleaning, that's more like emotional archaeology. Fair enough. I spent my weekend with family, actually. We made dinner together on Sunday. That sounds relaxing. It was, though after dinner, I ended up checking a few work messages. Ah, there it is, work creeping back in. Yeah, it has a way of following you home sometimes. And speaking of work following you home, today's topic fits perfectly, right? Let's get into how to talk about overtime in English, starting with the basics. What exactly does working overtime mean? It means putting in more hours than your regular schedule. So if your normal hours are 9 to 5 and you're still there at 7, that's overtime. Exactly, simple as that. So if I stay 2 extra hours, I'm working overtime, right? And I've also heard people say, I stayed late at work. Is that the same idea? Yes. Stay late is just a more casual, natural way of expressing the same thing. So I could say, I stayed late at work on Friday. Definitely. Or you could say, I worked overtime, I put in extra hours, or I didn't leave the office on time. Put in extra hours sounds like a phrase I could actually use. It comes across as natural, workplace appropriate English. Got it? So why do people usually end up working overtime? Lots of reasons. A big project, an approaching deadline, not enough staff, a busy season, or something unexpected coming up. Quick question. What does deadline actually mean? Good one. A deadline is the final date or time something needs to be finished by. So if my report needs to be done by 5 on Friday, that's my deadline, exactly. And honestly, I'm not a fan of deadlines. Most people aren't. I actually don't mind the concept of deadlines. I just don't love the stress that comes with them. That's a very honest answer. Let's look at some go-to phrases for describing your day. If someone asks how your day's going, you could say, I'm working late today, or I have to stay late tonight, and have to shows it's something required, not optional. Right. It expresses obligation rather than choice. So if I want to sound more relaxed about it, I might just say, yeah, I'm stuck at the office tonight. You can, though. Stuck can carry a slightly negative tone, which, to be fair, is sometimes accurate, also fair. And if I don't want to sound like I'm complaining too much, then you could say, it's been a busy week, or we're short on time, so I'm staying late. That sounds more professional, right? It explains the situation without adding a lot of emotion to it. Let's try a quick example. Imagine you ask about my day. Sure, how's your day going? Pretty hectic. Honestly, I have to stay late tonight. Oh, really? How come? We've got a deadline first thing tomorrow, so I need to wrap up a report. Nice, short, clear, and natural. Exactly what I aim for. My brain really appreciates short and clear. Now let's talk about how people actually feel about overtime, because some don't mind it at all and some really can't stand it. I'll admit I'm in the second camp. I figured occasional overtime, sure, I get it. But every single week, no thank you. That's actually a great phrase too. Once in a while means sometimes, but not frequently. Oh, that's useful. So I could say, I don't mind overtime once in a while. Exactly. A really common expression. What about you? Does overtime bother you? Depends on the situation. If there's a clear reason behind it, I understand. But if it turns into a constant pattern, that's when it becomes a problem. Makes sense. So the issue isn't overtime itself, it's when there's too much of it. Exactly. Balance is the key thing. Can learners say something like, I'm overloaded? Yes, definitely. But let's break that down. Overloaded means you have way more work than you can comfortably handle. Oh, I know that feeling all too well. A lot of people do, for instance. I'm overloaded this week, so I've been staying late every day. That sounds painfully real. Too real sometimes. Another useful word is workload. Wait, remind me what workload means exactly. It's the total amount of work you're responsible for. So if I've got 10 tasks and 5 meetings stacked up, my workload is heavy. Exactly. And heavy workload is a really common pairing. Could I also say, my workload is crazy? Yes, that's more casual and emotionally expressive. Sounds like a perfect description of me. Every Thursday around 4, let's get personal for a second. I sometimes end up working overtime when I'm putting together a new lesson. Oh yeah, what usually happens there? I plan everything out, double check the examples, revise the material, and then answer student questions. And just when I think I'm finished, I spot 3 more things that need fixing. Ah, the classic, just one more thing. Exactly. And then that one thing somehow multiplies into 5 things. I get that with video editing too. I'll think I'm basically done. Then spend another 40 minutes tweaking small details. That happens a lot with creative work. Yeah, I'll fix the audio, then the visuals, then the title, then rewatch the whole thing again, just to be sure. So do you find yourself working overtime often? Not daily, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. But during a big project, it can be 3 nights in a single week. That's a helpful level of detail. Numbers really do make your English clearer, true. Instead of just saying sometimes, I can say twice a month or 3 nights a week. Exactly. Now let's go over some solid response patterns. If someone asks, do you work overtime often? You might say, not really, only when there's a big deadline coming up. Or, yes, more than I'd like. I really like that second one. It sounds refreshingly honest. It does. Let's practice a few full responses. Go ahead. Ask me something. All right. Do you often work overtime? Not really. Mainly just when there's a major deadline. Good. One more. Sure. How do you feel about working overtime? I'm not thrilled about it, but I understand why it's sometimes necessary. Very natural response. Last one. Go for it. What time do you usually leave the office? On a normal day around 6, but on busier days closer to 8. Excellent. Very clear answer. Now what if I want to vent a little? But politely. Good point. You could say, it's been a long week, I'm pretty worn out. Or, we've had a lot going on. Wait, what does a lot going on really mean here? It basically means a lot of responsibilities and tasks piling up. That's a nice phrase, but maybe a bit advanced. Yeah, for beginner to intermediate learners. We have a lot of work is a simpler alternative. Good tip. Keeping things simple builds confidence. Exactly. Now let's touch on money. Because when people work overtime, do they always get paid extra for it? Not always. It really depends on the company and the specific job. So how would I ask about that in English? You could simply say, do you get overtime pay, meaning extra compensation for the additional hours worked? Overtime pay, nice and straightforward. Right? Another related phrase is paid overtime. So I could say, we get paid overtime on weekends. Exactly. And some workplaces offer something called time off in lieu. What does that one mean? It means you get free time later on instead of extra money right away. Oh, so if I put in 3 extra hours today, maybe I get to leave early another day. Exactly. That sounds like a nice option. It can be. Though again, it really depends on company policy And policy refers to the official rules a company follows, right? Exactly. The official set of rules or guidelines. I think a lot of learners will find these particular terms useful for office-related conversations. Agreed. Now let's talk about how to agree to overtime when it's requested. Sure, say your manager asks, "Can you stay a bit later tonight?" You could respond, "Yes, that works for me. Sure, I can stay an extra hour." Or, "No problem, happy to help." I can stay an extra hour because it sets a clear limit. Smart move. It's clear and still polite. And what if I genuinely can't stay? Then you'll want a polite way to decline. You might say, "I'm sorry, I'm not able to stay late tonight." Or, "I already have something planned this evening." And something planned means an arrangement I already need to take care of. Exactly. A responsibility or commitment already scheduled. So I could say, "I can't stay tonight, I have a doctor's appointment." Yes, that's very natural. Or, "I have plans after work." And what if I'd rather not share too many personal details? Then keep it brief. "I'm sorry, I have plans this evening." Works perfectly fine, nice, short and polite, right? And you can also offer an alternative to still sound cooperative. "I can get it finished first thing tomorrow morning." Oh, that's a great approach. You're declining, but still coming across as helpful. Exactly. That balance matters a lot in professional English. Let's turn that into a mini example. Sure, go ahead. "Leo, could you stay late and finish up the client file? I'm sorry, I'm not able to stay tonight. I already have plans after work, but I can have it done first thing tomorrow morning." That sounds professional and responsible. Thanks. I sound way more put together than I actually feel right now. That's basically the whole point of workplace English. I had a feeling. Now let's shift to talking about overtime with co-workers, which tends to be a bit different from talking to your boss, right? Because with co-workers, things are usually more relaxed. You might say, "Looks like another late one," or "You staying late too," or "Still here at 7:30. That's not a great sign." Yeah, that all sounds pretty natural. And maybe your co-worker replies, "Yeah, just trying to wrap things up." Good phrase. Wrap things up means finishing off the last remaining tasks. Oh, nice. So, "I need to wrap things up before heading out." Means I'm finishing and then leaving. Exactly. Another one I hear is "clock out." What's that about? Clock out means officially ending your shift and recording the time you left. So in some jobs, people clock in and clock out, right? Especially in hourly positions or shift-based work. Can office employees use that phrase too? Sometimes. Though leave work is a simpler, more general option. Now let's talk about the emotional side, because overtime can leave people feeling tired, stressed, or completely burnt out, right? Stressed is common and pretty easy to use. Burnt out is a stronger term though. What exactly does burnt out mean? It describes being extremely exhausted from an extended period of overworking, not just from one tough day. So if I stay late one night, I'm just tired. But if I'm staying late for months, that might actually be burnout. Exactly. That's a really important distinction. So could I say, "I need a break, I'm feeling burnt out"? Absolutely. That's a completely valid and important thing to be able to express. Agreed, learners need honest language too, not only polite phrases. Exactly, language needs to cover real feelings as well. Now what about remote work? Because overtime feels different when you're working from home. Very true. When your home is also your workplace, the boundary between work time and personal time gets blurry fast, right? Your laptop is right there, your phone is right there. Your boss is basically right there in your messages. Exactly. So people often say things like, "I logged off late," or "I've been answering emails after dinner." Log off is a good one. It means ending your computer session or stepping away from work. I sometimes remind myself I work from home, so I need to actually log off. Very relatable. A lot of people know that feeling. Same here. Because at home, work doesn't always feel like it has a clear ending point. That's exactly why routines matter so much. Having a clear stopping point helps. Closing the laptop, turning off notifications, physically leaving the room if you can. That sounds very much like something you'd say. And it's very healthy advice. Thank you. I try to follow it, but sometimes just one more email turns into it suddenly being past 9. That happens to so many people. So how do we talk about work-life balance in English? You could say, I'm trying to maintain a good work-life balance. Or, I need better balance between my job and personal time. Simple and useful. Another common one is, I don't want work taking over my evenings. And taking over means controlling something excessively. Exactly. That phrase sounds strong but still clear. Now let's look at a few common mistakes learners make. One is phrasing it as, I do overtime, which sounds a bit off. Oh really, in most cases, I work overtime sounds much more natural than I do overtime. Good to know. So the better sentence would be, I work overtime twice a week. Exactly. Another common mistake is relying on the same word constantly, like just saying busy, busy, busy over and over, right? It's much better to mix things up. Words like overloaded, behind schedule, under pressure, or short on time. Wait, what does behind schedule mean exactly? It means you're behind where you planned to be, not keeping pace with your expected progress. So, if my team planned to complete 5 tasks by Wednesday but only finish 3, we're behind schedule. Exactly. And another handy phrase is catch up. I sort of know that one already. It means getting back to the level you're supposed to be at. So if you fall behind, you try to catch up. For example, I stayed late to catch up on emails. Perfect. Now let's do a longer sample conversation from start to finish. Imagine 2 co-workers talking around 6:45 in the evening. Great idea. I'll start. Still here. Yeah. I need to get this report finished tonight. That sounds rough. Do you work overtime a lot? Not usually, but this week has been chaotic. Is it because of tomorrow's client meeting? Exactly. We're behind schedule, so I'm trying to catch up. Are you at least getting paid for the overtime? No, but I can take time off next week instead. Well, that helps a little. Honestly, I just want pizza and sleep at this point. Very relatable. Thank you. I appreciate realistic English and realistic pizza cravings. Same. Now let's talk about some practical advice. Because if someone frequently works overtime, what should they say or do? First, communicate early. Don't wait until the last possible moment. So you might say, I may need some support with this project before it turns into a bigger issue. Exactly. Second, ask clear questions about deadlines and priorities. And priorities means the tasks that matter most and need attention first, right? You could ask, which task should I tackle first? That's a genuinely useful question. I need that one in my own life. Honestly. Third tip, be realistic about your timeline. If a task needs 2 days, don't promise it in 2 hours. Ouch. That one hits close to home. A lot of people do that because they want to seem helpful. Understandable. But being realistic actually helps more in the long run. Agreed. What's the fourth tip? Keep track of your hours. If you're regularly working overtime, write your extra hours down. That makes sense for pay purposes or for requesting time off later. Exactly. And also just for your own awareness. Awareness really does matter. Sometimes people get so busy they don't even notice the pattern forming. Very true. And then one difficult week quietly turns into 5 difficult weeks. And suddenly they're wondering why they're constantly exhausted. Exactly. One more helpful thing is knowing how to check in with a coworker about overtime in a friendly way. Good point. You could ask, are you still working? Do you need a hand? Or how much longer do you think you'll be here? Do you need a hand is such a kind thing to ask. It really is. It builds a sense of teamwork. And if someone asked me that, I might say, thanks, but I'm almost finished. Or, actually, yes, could you take a look at this file? Great responses. Now, what about discussing overtime during a job interview? That's important too. You might be asked, are you comfortable working overtime during busy periods? Oh, that sounds like a serious question. It can be, but it's a pretty common one. A strong response would be something like, yes, I understand that busy periods happen and I'm flexible when it's needed. And flexible means being able to adjust to different situations. Exactly. You could follow up with, I also value good planning and balance. Nice. so you come across as positive without sounding like someone who never sleeps. Exactly. And I think that's a great point to wrap up our main conversation. Agreed. We've covered the meaning of overtime, common reasons for it, how people feel about it, useful expressions, polite ways to decline, remote work challenges, and some practical strategies. And now I honestly feel a little tired just from talking about overtime this whole time. Well, let's move into vocabulary review then. Sounds good. Throughout our conversation, we used a lot of genuinely useful words and expressions, and they're all really valuable for workplace English. First word, overtime. This refers to extra work hours beyond your normal schedule. The star of today's episode, exactly. We used it to describe staying late for work. For instance, I work overtime twice a month. Or we have a lot of overtime during our busy season. Another example, I don't mind occasional overtime. A useful tip. Work overtime sounds more natural than do overtime in most contexts. My personal take is simple. I'm not a huge fan of overtime, but I understand why it happens sometimes. Next word, deadline, meaning the final point by which something must be completed. The somewhat intimidating clock word. In our chat, we mentioned that overtime often happens because of deadlines. For example, my deadline is Friday at 5, or we're staying late because tomorrow morning is the deadline. Another example, I finished the slides before the deadline. A related expression is meet a deadline, meaning to finish on time. How do you personally feel about deadlines? I actually like having clear deadlines. They help me plan things out better. And I like them even more when they're still far away. Next word, workload, meaning the total amount of work someone has, right? If I have too many tasks piled up, my workload is heavy. Exactly. In our conversation, we mentioned that overtime often shows up when workload gets too heavy. For instance, my workload is heavy this week. Another example. She's asking for help because her workload is too much. A third example. We need another team member. Our workload keeps growing. A common combination is heavy workload. My honest answer is that my workload always feels heavier when I haven't slept enough. Next word, overloaded, meaning having far too much work or pressure to handle. Oh yes, I know that feeling well. We used it to describe a week packed with too many tasks. For example, I'm overloaded today, so I'm skipping lunch. Another example, the whole team feels overloaded before the big event. A third, if you're feeling overloaded, ask for help sooner rather than later. Good advice. And a quick note, busy is more common and simpler, while overloaded carries a stronger, more serious tone. So busy is everyday language, and overloaded signals something more intense. Exactly. Next phrase, stay late, meaning remaining at work beyond your usual hours. This one comes up constantly in daily conversation, right? We used it several times today. For example, I have to stay late tonight. Another, she stays late every Thursday to finish up reports. A third, we don't usually stay late unless there's an issue. A quick tip. This phrase feels simple and approachable. What time do you usually end up staying until? If I stay late, it's typically until around 8. Next phrase, overtime pay, meaning extra compensation for extra hours worked, a really important one. In our conversation, we asked, do you get overtime pay? For example, some companies offer overtime pay on weekends. Another, he checks the policy regarding overtime pay. A third, I ask HR whether overtime pay is included. A related phrase is paid overtime. My honest take is that if people are putting in more hours, fair compensation matters. Next phrase, time off in lieu, meaning receiving free time later instead of extra pay now. This one's a bit trickier but still useful, right? We discussed it as another form of compensation. For example, I work extra hours today and take time off on Friday instead. Another, our company offers time off in lieu after weekend work. A third, she prefers time off in lieu over overtime pay. And a quick note, if this phrase feels tricky, you can simplify it to I get time off later, which works fine for most learners. Next phrase, wrap things up, meaning finishing your final remaining tasks. One of my favorites from today's conversation, co-workers use it when they're nearly finished for the day. For example, I need 10 more minutes to wrap things up. Another, he wraps things up before heading out of the office. A third, let's wrap things up and head home. A simple alternative is finish up. My honest habit is saying I'm wrapping things up and then somehow discovering 3 more tasks, which happens more often than I'd like to admit. Sadly relatable. Next phrase, burnt out, meaning extremely exhausted from an extended period of overworking, right? Not just one difficult day, but a prolonged stretch of it. Exactly. We talked about burnout occurring after too much overtime spread across weeks or months. For example, I feel burnt out after 3 months of late nights. Another, he takes a break because he's feeling burnt out. A third, too much ongoing stress can leave people burnt out. A related noun form is burnout. What helps you personally avoid burnout? Clear boundaries, proper rest, and realistic planning. My approach is sleep and turning my phone off. Final phrase, work-life balance, meaning a healthy equilibrium between job responsibilities and personal time. A genuinely important phrase from today's discussion. We mentioned that people need a solid work-life balance, especially when working remotely. For example, I try to maintain good work-life balance. Another, overtime can hurt your work-life balance. A third, she changes jobs in search of better work-life balance. This phrase comes up frequently in interviews, office settings, and everyday conversations. My honest answer is that good work-life balance genuinely makes me happier and more focused. Now let's run through a quick recap. Overtime means extra work hours beyond the normal schedule. Deadline is the final time something must be completed. Workload is the total amount of work someone carries. Overloaded means having too much work or pressure. Stay late means remaining at work past normal hours. Overtime pay is extra compensation for extra hours. Time off in lieu is free time later instead of extra pay. Wrap things up means finishing final tasks. Clock out means officially ending your shift and logging your departure. Burnt out means being extremely exhausted from prolonged overworking. And work-life balance is a healthy equilibrium between professional and personal time. All right, Leo, that was quite a lot of talking about overtime. Yeah. It kind of feels like we just sat through a really long meeting ourselves. Well, at least this meeting came with solid English practice. True, and no bad coffee either. Let's quickly go over what we covered today. Sounds good. Let's keep it simple. First, we covered the basic meaning of overtime, using phrases like I work overtime, I stay late, and I put in extra hours as our foundational expressions. Then we discussed common reasons behind overtime, mentioning deadlines, heavy workloads, busy periods, and falling behind schedule. So now learners have the tools to explain why they're staying late. After that, we explored how to talk about emotions around overtime, using phrases like I'm tired, I'm overloaded, and I feel burnt out. Because workplace English isn't only about tasks, it's also about expressing real feelings. Next, we covered polite workplace communication, practicing how to agree to overtime, how to decline politely, and how to offer an alternative solution like, I can't stay tonight, but I can finish it tomorrow morning. Exactly. Then we touched on overtime pay, time off in lieu, and company policy, all genuinely useful for real office situations. And finally, we looked at healthy phrases around boundaries and balance, covering logging off, wrapping things up, and protecting your work-life balance. So really, this topic isn't as difficult as it might seem. You just need clear vocabulary and honest sentence structures. Exactly. Keep it simple, stay polite, and speak clearly. Now, we'd love to hear from you. This is honestly our favorite part, right? Because this is where you get to practice real English yourself. Our question for today is, how do you personally feel about working overtime? And what do you usually say when you need to stay late or when you're able to leave on time? Great question. My answer is pretty simple. I'm not a fan of overtime every single week. And if I do need to stay late, I usually say, I just need 1 more hour to finish this up. Nice. My answer is a bit different. I don't mind overtime during genuinely busy periods, but balance matters a lot to me, so I usually say, I can stay late today, but I need to leave on time tomorrow. See, our answers are different, and that's completely fine. Exactly. So viewers, we'd love to know your thoughts too. Drop a comment below using one of these sentence starters. Template 1. I feel about overtime because Template 2. When I need to stay late, I usually say calm. Template 3. I try to maintain work-life balance by calm. Go ahead and write 1 or 2 full sentences. It helps us understand what to cover next, and it's great writing practice for you too. Thank you so much for spending time learning with us today. Yes, thank you for joining us for this episode. And if this lesson was helpful, give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next conversation lesson. We're here to help you build genuine confidence one step at a time. You're all doing great, and we're proud of the progress you're making. Keep practicing. Remember, clear and simple English goes a very long way. And one more thing, you don't need perfect English to sound professional. All right? Have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Take care, get some rest, and try not to work too late tonight. Goodbye, everyone. Bye. Take care.